evening to everyone here. To all those who are inside the room, we have with us Mitch Schwartz, our speaker, and Crystal, our Adalo PH founder. Yay! Alrighty. Let's wait for others to come. 5 minutes. Yep. While waiting for other people to come in, ask you a question. How's your evening? It's Friday evening, guys. It's once again Friday. How are you? Been good, been bad, 50-50, so.
It is always nice to get to Friday. Even when you enjoy what you do, it is nice to know the weekend's rolling around. Always lifts my spirits.
Yeah. What do you guys love about Friday? Great evening. Wow. Thank you, King. Good to see you guys again. Hey, Jennifer. Missed the last 2 meetings. I missed this night. We have recordings. You can check it out on the No Code PH. Don't you worry about it. All good. So, all right, let me share my screen first. Everyone's coming. Yay! Nice. Some music.
All right. While we wait, Alexis, I hope you don't know.
Oh, hey, that's nice. Thank you so much. I was just looking up on YouTube. Thanks.
If there's any music that says security to me, this must be it.
Hey. Hey guys, this is nice. It's like a sci-fi cool with your glasses on. Nice. Good evening to everyone. Just came. Just arrived. Yep.
All right, while we're waiting, where's everyone from? You want to throw it in the chat?
Why don't we all say good evening to everyone? Yay, in the chat box. Good evening from Philippines. Jaya Pablo. Paranaque. Hey, Crystal. I'm from Makati. Mandaluyong. Oh,
West Virginia.
from West Virginia. Nice. Navotas. Baguio rin.
All right,
Kababayan.
random guesses. Where am I
Wow.
from? Where am I in the world right now?
Any guess? Any guess?
First quiz show. First quiz of the night. Maybe the only quiz of the night. We're not going to make it a challenging one. Yes, which is from Canada.
Crystal, that's a cheat. You know already. Hey. Let's make it to 20. Then maybe we can start
Ready when you are.
by 8:10 p.m. Yes,
Perfect.
thank you. So guys, well, maybe while we are waiting, I'd like you to ask a question. Let me share my screen. Here. Are you seeing my
Yes.
slideshow? Or what are you seeing right now?
Am I the only person not in the Philippines here? I wonder. Anyways,
Someone's from West Virginia, I guess.
and the Philippines.
And yeah, all right. All right, so guys, to those who are inside the room, why don't we try to describe our Adalo experience? We're on the last leg, workshop 5. Anybody in 3 words, how would you describe your experience with Adalo? Come on.
Jay, I love your answer. I'm a novice. That's a great answer.
An exciting journey. Wow. I'm a novice. Yeah. Exploring Adalo. I know we did also experience that. Pragmaflow components. That's the thing we use. Very, very easy. Interesting. Nice. What about the other? Fast, intuitive, no code. That's Adalo. Yep. What else? We have 12 people in the room at the moment. Hello, Carlo, Andre. Shout out guys. Floridane, Jaya, King, Kyla, Lyra, and Nomi. Simple, intuitive, fun, similar to Figma, the UI. I haven't tried Figma yet. I think that's interesting to explore.
I really want
Yep.
to fall in love with Figma. I'm looking for an excuse to really use it and to bring it to our whole team.
Oh, wow. Guys, did you hear it? Adalo's leveling up by the day. Have to stay updated. Yep. So I think that's it for everyone. So without further ado, oh, Daniel, yes, more powerful than Glide app.
I'm really glad Daniel brought up
yes.
slide apps. We will mention it quickly later when we talk about security.
Nice. So I will be proceeding to our event for this evening. I am Alexis, and I will be your host for tonight. I'd like to congratulate everyone. It's already past our deadline for the submission of our Adalo apps. So I'd like to congratulate and give a round of applause to everyone who were able to submit their projects. Yay, good job, guys. So yeah, before going on to introducing our speaker, I would like to remind everybody else that by listening to the workshop, asking questions, you can get a no-code PH shirt. Yes, let me show you then the shirt. Hey, this is so nice. Very comfy. And listen to the workshop, ask as much question as you want, and just be present. Yep. And so for the fifth workshop, our topic will be building low-code app security. So we'll be talking about security of applications, and this is very important now that data privacy is really important part of our lives. There are many scams and other spammers that wants to collect our data and just get our identity. So building an app that is secure is very important. So this is very exciting topic for us developers. And yes, our speaker, our ground rule, everyone, and engage by commenting and asking questions in the chat box. And most importantly, let's have fun. Yay! 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 So for tonight, our speaker, Mitch Schwartz, the partner of Pragmaflow. He is a coach, tech consultant, and he has a heart to help professionals find their professional enjoyment, especially in the tech industry. And he's worked across creative fields from product UX, UI design, dev, mechanical and electrical design, video, music, visual design and branding, workflow and process design, as well as the design and delivery of instructional and training programs. And I think the most interesting thing that I discovered while searching through Mitch's profile is his love to, or his love for less is more. I think that's one way to put things. The simpler is the better. And yes, Mitch.
Oh yeah, sure. So I think I guess it's time to start. So yeah, some quick primers is it's Friday morning for me, but it's Friday night for most of you. So let's make this fun. I hate sitting and listening to people talk, actually, to a point of weakness, but I really hate those things. So what I would love is if you guys just interrupt me as much as you want to. That would be awesome. This is a small call, so you can totally type questions in the chat, but you can just unmute and start talking, like when I pause for a second, which sometimes I do. So please jump in. And then one of the things that that you probably already notice as you're learning Adalo is if you talk to someone who is earlier on in the journey than you, you start saying things and they're like, wait, what's that? I don't understand. It's really hard sometimes to be fully aware of what everyone else knows. So I may accidentally jump a step, and I just want you guys to say, hey, wait, how did we get from here to there, or what happened in between? So I'm going to walk you through about 4 items that relate to security. They're all going to be pretty straightforward conceptually. And the goal here is just, I'm not a security expert. My business partner is, our devs are really strong at it. I'm the one who took the information from them. I've learned some of this in the past year. And what I want to do is share it with you. But we're just going to walk through and really show you like, okay, data can be stolen from an app. But what does that look like? It's so kind of, in a way, imaginary. So let's make it really concrete and then just talk about the basic things that you could do. And so with that, I'll invite anyone who is able to just to turn on your cameras, because that's going to make this a better chat. If you've ever done any type of performance, you get energy back from the audience. So I'm caffeinated. I can carry this whole thing. I can talk for 2 hours straight. But I think it'll be more fun the more the rest of you are all engaged. So I invite you all to do that. And I believe from there we will start.
Okay. Come on, guys. It's the 5th workshop. Show
And
us
if you're
your
drinking,
pretty
you can...
and handsome faces. Come on. Don't be shy.
And if you're drinking, you can drink on camera.
Oh,
that is okay.
Awesome. Like me, yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you, guys. Nice to see you. Okay. So I guess before we start, does anyone have any like super high level, or do you have any questions in general about what we're going to talk about? I know you don't know exactly what we get into. You can ask me as we go. But if you have any questions that are just on your mind now, pop them in the chat and I'll see if I can cover them as I go through the flow of this. If not, at the end, we'll do a Q&A and we'll talk about security. We'll talk about really anything you want. We'll just open it up to a full AMA and go from there. Cool. So Crystal, in terms of how secure is Adalo, I think the really useful thing to talk about is how securely we build in Adalo. So if I say like how secure is a circular saw, then it depends who's using it and how they're using it.
Great answer, I feel, yeah.
And so, there may be 4 different saws and one is safer than the other. But the point today is to talk about how to use it safely. So I'll drop the analogy. The goal today is to talk about how to use Adalo safely. I have no idea what Pragmaflow is. We're guys who do software. We have built a lot of Adalo components. We are Adalo partners. That thing Crystal said might be true. I haven't measured up against the other experts. But yeah, we're just guys who've done a lot of work in Adalo. And then my business partner, Stephen, who isn't here today, has worked on banking platforms. He's worked on financial trading platforms, industrial automation, and is a security expert. So a lot of the knowledge is also just distilled from our developers, and we just have a strong basis in this. So again, I'll say I am not the security expert, which is probably a good thing, because hopefully I'll explain things a little bit more simply than someone who's an expert would.
Also, I think Carlo asked, what are the existing risks when we build apps using Adalo?
Yes, that is definitely what we're going to talk about. So I guess let's jump in.
Everybody's
right.
excited.
Cool. So, and I hope we share sound. I don't want to lose the music, even though it's a little quiet. And let me know if the music is ever distracting, but I find it makes things a bit more fun. Okay, so here we go. This is an Adalo app I've built. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to send a custom action, and I'm going to show you how I can break your 2FA really easily. So when we send a 2FA code, right, we send, or a verification. So I want to confirm a user's email. They've already logged in, they get to the next screen, and then they click a button and I send them a 6-digit code. And that 6-digit code, I need them to type in so that I can confirm they received it by email, they open their email, they copy that code and put it back in here. So I'm going to show you how easy it can be to break that if it's not done well. And so we're going to really get into a couple of important ideas, but maybe I'll show you something first and then we'll talk about the ideas behind it. So this is a custom action. And again, if one of you is going, what is a custom action? What are you even talking about? Raise your hand. It's a good time. For one, yeah, no, I am sharing my screen. That's good. If I forget to share my screen or something, please do call that out.
Mitch, is the music supposed to?
Sorry?
In the background? It's,
Yeah, it's too loud?
yeah, at
Okay.
least on my end.
Cool, I've turned it down a bit. Let me know if it's still an issue.
Yes, all good.
Perfect. All right. Cool. So here we have a custom action. The only thing this custom action is doing is it's sending a 2FA code. And so basically we're creating the code by just using a random function. I'm putting it in the user's database so that that way I can go on the next screen and say, hey, does the code that he typed in match the code that I create here? And then I send that code to the user. I'm using make.com, which I'm a big fan of. Full disclosure, we're also make.com partners. I've been using them for like 5-6 years. Really great integration platform. And so let's see what happens when we click this button. Now, before actually we get to clicking the button, I'm going to open the inspection console here. So on PC,
wait, sorry to
Mitch,
interrupt you, Mitch.
sorry.
Yeah, we can only see the outline. We can't see like the rest of your screen or like whatever window. Sorry.
weird. Let's try again. Okay, so did any of what I explained make sense?
Yes, there you go.
Do you see my screen fully now? Okay.
Yes,
Did you guys see what I was pointing to before when I was talking, or no, not really?
To be honest, not really.
Okay,
No.
really quickly. We have a button here. It's a custom action. The first thing, this isn't custom action. We update the user. We use the random function that creates a 6-digit code. And then we send that code by email to the user. So update user, here the field 2FA, it's a number field, and I've used the random function. So it's a random number between 11,100, 11,000. Okay, don't make me say that number here, but you get what I'm saying. 1111111 to just under 1 million. And so that number will get sent through this custom action here. The only thing this custom action is doing, it's sending this code right here. Hold on, it says new input, but that's just because it's out of date. We'll make that less confusing. So there, it's sending this input, the code, to this URL, and that is make.com. It's a thing I set up. We can talk about that after. Okay, so we'll move on. So when I go into the preview, right, and what I'm going to do right now, and I don't know if you guys have seen this before, so I'll talk about it quickly. This is the I don't know what the official name is, inspection window, panel is what I call it. So when you go in here, there's a lot of things you can do, from seeing all the individual HTML elements. This can be really useful. Like, let's say you go to a page and it has a video embedded and you want to download the video, but the page doesn't let you. If you poke through here, you can often find the source URL for the video, click on it directly, download it from there. Or images or things like that. So you can see all the HTML because, of course, the browser can see it. Console will show you the JavaScript and what's going on there. So basically what's running, you can type in JavaScript commands. We today are going to go to the network tab, and this is going to tell us all the calls that are being made by the app. And so we're going to see all the network activity as I click the custom action button. So there we go, did a whole bunch of things. So here, this is something that it did with a database. So we can see the URL that it went out to. There's a whole bunch of things, but what we're going to look at right now is this guy right here. Execute is the custom action. And so if I click onto this payload screen, you notice I haven't gone to my email. I'm still in the browser, and boom, 810360. Is that the randomly generated code that we had just created? Let's take a look. 810360. So if you do this, your 2FA can be easily broken by anyone in the web browser. I haven't looked into the ways to do this on mobile app, but I'm pretty certain it can be done as well. So then this wouldn't be such a secure system. What can we do instead? So I will talk about that. We're going to talk really quickly about the concept of client and server. So what you're seeing here, well, what you're seeing here as soon as the preview loads back up is the client. This is my interface. This is how I as a user am interacting with the app. So this is the front end. Anything that gets sent through the front end, anything sent from Adalo essentially can be seen in the browser because it's being done through there. The browser has to send the command to do it. It has to send the information. So a lot of these things are visible on the front end. Now, different platforms will handle all these things differently. And I will not speak like very, very broadly, about all the platforms. But what I will say is that this is something in general we need to look out for. Sorry, give me one sec here. Okay. So, sorry, apologies, guys. My screen has just cut out at a turns out. Okay. So while my screen loads back up, basically sorry. All right, hopefully back on track. Let's just get a quick confirmation that you can hear me. I will turn my camera back on. All right. Thank you, King Red. Yes. Much appreciated. Okay, so back to this. When we're dealing with things on the front end, they can be seen by the end user, potentially the browser. That's the short version. So then what we could do is go to a site like make.com, and we can build something that sends the information. So for example, here, what's happening? I am so sorry, guys. This is the biggest pain. Give me 1 second. My entire system just keeps cutting out, and it has not been happening before, but it is today, because that's how live demos work. My apologies. Okay, hopefully it's going to behave now. So back to the content is, sorry, it's cutting out every time I touch something. Okay, so I'm going to go really gently on my entire setup now. So basically what we could do is, instead of actually sending the code from Adalo, we could do something like go into make, and by the way, this is the address that the message is getting sent to already. So if we go in here and let's say we do something like Gmail, right? Because I have a Gmail
Mitch,
account.
I think what we're seeing is the phone with the security demo.
Really? It didn't update to the new tab.
Yes.
That is, wow, what a challenge today. This is just like everything misbehaving. Okay, are we there? Do you see make.com?
From my end, I'm still seeing the security demo. What about the other? The other
Oh,
um,
now are you seeing make.com? Perfect. Okay,
Yes.
so geez, let me, so this is the flow that things are being sent to. You can see this webhook. You can't see the whole thing, but it's the same one that I had in the custom action. So all that's happening is when the custom action comes through, I'll just show how this works really quickly. Send the custom action, and we can see that this records the information I sent through, and all I sent through here was 413845. I guess that's the new 2FA that it just generated, but I was able to find that from the front end, so this isn't secure. So what we can do is instead do something like this. We'll do, we'll create a variable here. So we can go into tools, we can go into set a variable. We'll put this on the chain, delete that. And then we could just do our here 2FA code, and we could do like a math function exactly, or very similar usually to what we did before. So we have random, and then here, if we mouse over, how do we use random? It's a number between 0 and 1. So we would do something like random times, what would it be? It'd be like 1 million, or actually it'd be random times 999999. So now we're going to get a code that's somewhere between 0 and this number. And then we would probably just add like floor or ceiling onto it so that it, yeah, we'll do ceiling. So that basically it is going to give a integer and not like a decimal number. And so if we did something like that, we could just go add a module again and send an email through Gmail. Send an email, and here, so the content could be your code is, and then we would grab this 2FA code here. Now, what I could do at this point, right, I need to give an email, and here to me, Mitch at pragmaflow.com, and subject is your 2FA code. Now, just in terms of user experience, I like to put the 2FA code in the subject because it saves people a click. So if I do this, then I wouldn't even, like you'll see at this point, I'm not even using the one that gets sent to me from from Adalo anymore. So I could remove that. And then from Adalo, I would just say, hey, this user needs a code. I would maybe send the user's email over here and plug that into the to field right there. So then it would just be, you know, the variable that I'm sending over would be the email. So we'd send an email to that person, make a random code, and it would not be visible to the web browser because all of this happens invisibly in the background. And so when we're doing things that relate to sending information and dealing with private information, we really want to make sure that as much as possible, we tell something in the back end to do the work, but we don't send the information from the client or from the front end, so that in that way it can't be found by someone in the browser. Any questions?
Ian has a question. Is webhook free?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, so make.com has a free tier. It's pretty good. If you compare it to Zapier, it's way less expensive to use because your first plan starts at like $10 a month. But for free, you can run 2 scenarios, 1,000 requests. For reference, when I ran this before and you saw the number 1 pop up, that's 1 request. And then I can show afterwards how to make this, but you really just go click add a webhook, and then it'll give you this URL. And the first time you send it a webhook, it'll determine the data structure for you. And anytime you update the data you're sending, you can tell it to just sense it again, and it's very nicely automated. And free up until, you know, free for basic usage. But if you're running an app, you're for sure going to need to upgrade to a $10 or $20 or $30 a month plan, at which point it should be saving you more than that amount of money. I believe Integromat Make is definitely one of the best. I would love if we could write code in there, but it's definitely not required. Any other questions before I move on to something else? I'll give like 5 more seconds. Okay, cool. So moving on from there. We did this call before, and I was able to find this piece of data. Let's talk about other things I can find. So if I go in here, I can see the request URL, which is normal. And so if I go over here into Postman, and Postman is a tool for sending requests. If I send this, hold on, wrong one.
Ask, does Adalo knows about this issue?
I'm sorry?
Does Adalo knows about the issue? I think
I don't work at Adalo, so it'd be hard for me to say what they know about. And I think it's important to be clear, just, you know, the idea is that the way to build in Adalo or any other platform really is what I'm saying. So it's less specifically about Adalo. Now, in terms of what they might be able to do, that's not my area of expertise, actually. So it'd be hard for me to comment on that, unfortunately. Okay, so I wanted to show you something kind of cool, but I may have forgotten how to do it. This is the problem with not being the expert, but let's just see. I'm going to poke around a little bit more. Send this custom action again, actually, just so we can take a look. And then, so basically what we can do is we can actually call this, usually this URL. And so if we do that, we can basically from elsewhere actually get the data that was being sent to Adalo. Now, right now it's not working, so this is a crappy demo. It's probably because I'm like choosing the wrong thing. So let me move on to another demo, and maybe I'm going to figure this one out afterwards, because it was a actual Heroku link the other day when I was doing it. So which one was it? Heroku app. Yeah, no, that should be it. Execute. Okay, so let's do something else that's cool. If we take a look at this over here, the one question mark app ID, and this is going to come to user permissions. So you've probably seen user permissions in the database section and maybe wondered, why do they matter at all? Of course, nobody can access my user records. They need to be logged in. I would need to be there. So what does it matter? Well, Adalo over here has made a request for user information. And so if I grab that URL and I pop it in my browser, I can see that same user information. So here is ID, password is hidden, temporary password, all this. And so let's take a look at my user collection settings. And if I go here and see what is and isn't protected, well, email, only logged in users can see it, right? Now, I can't remember the default, but let's just remove these because I put them on last night while I was testing. And so if I remove those restrictions that I added, and I do this, now you can see my email is also there. The username and full name is also there. But I'm logged in Adalo, and this is my information. So nothing here is really that problematic. Now the issue comes up, and let me just reshare my screen here. The issue comes up that if I go into this private browser where I'm not logged in, I can still do it. But the even more frightening thing is right here, this is my user ID, number 1. There's only 3 users in this app because it's a demo. So if I change this, I certainly shouldn't be able to see user 2's information, right? Except I can. And there's only 3 users, so this will be a short continuation of the demo, but there's user 3's data. So this is another way that someone can really easily go and get data. They have to have used your app, at least as far as I can tell, but still this is pretty problematic. And so there is an easy fix to it, and that is making sure that your records are only visible to the correct people. Now, luckily, passwords are hidden because in order to do forgot password, we can't restrict the passwords so tightly to only the user who is logged in. So here, let's say only logged in users can see this. And again, if I put it back, only logged in users. So the second I save this, and I realize you're seeing still this incognito mode screen, but I've just reset the permissions as before. And so email disappears, username disappears, and so on. And so this is the importance of using the permission settings. It literally prevents people from being able to take data. Simple as that. So not a lot of complexity. As you can see, it's not even that complicated to go and steal the data. Is this possibly true for no-code applications or only in Adalo? Okay, Daniel, I'm glad you asked this, and this comes back to glide apps. So the first time I used glide apps, and I started using lists the way I would do them in Adalo, and glide app said, if you do filtering on your list, then everyone's browser receives the whole list, and then the front-end client, the app front end is going to filter out the information. What that means is this issue does inherently exist in some other apps. Now, glide apps really warns you about it up front, and they do things differently than Adalo. They do it, I'm going to say worse, maybe that's the wrong way to describe it. When Adalo does a filtered list, they filter it on the back end, meaning they filter it and they only send you the results, which is much better. Glide apps sends you all the results and then it gets filtered, which means you would have access to the information that isn't shown. So then you can go record by record and set record permissions, but it's row by row, and it's really, it probably makes sense in the context of a business app, but for the kind of things we do in Adalo, glide apps wouldn't make sense. So yes, this is how vulnerable data is. This is, there's something really important to realize, which is low-code development is development, and that's a deep field. There's so much I don't know. I didn't know about most of this stuff 6 months ago. And so it is really easy to build horrifically insecure apps in the same way that if you, I don't know, I guess it's like, it's a funny analogy, but I'm going back to the saw. When I was 5, I had a saw that could barely cut anything, but I did manage to cut my finger on it because I didn't know how to use a saw at 5. It was a kid's saw, it was for safety. But you can still do damage with safety tools. And in the same way, you can still create insecure apps with any low code, as far as I know, any low code. So it is worth just having, and that's why we're doing this. It's just worth having the basics in mind and just understanding, you know, before I saw this, I was like, yeah, people can take data, I know. But this is next level, just seeing how it's actually done. And that's what I wanted to bring today. Okay. On to the next item, and let me actually remember to reshare my screen. Okay, so that's extracting user data. So actually, I already did how to build an email 2FA thing in make.com. Funny story. So that was the next thing I was going to do. We did it a bit out of order. But what I will do is just, I guess I'm going to allow questions for anyone who wants to ask like a particular question. And otherwise, what I could do is just show how to make this from scratch and how to connect it into Adalo. So you see how, basically, how would we do the 2FA really properly? I kind of started with a half-made thing and put on top of it. So I could just go from 0. It'll take us about maybe 5 minutes. So I'll pause before that. Any questions? And it can be off topic. And please feel free to unmute too. You don't even have to chat. You can just.
Hey, Mitch.
Hey, Carlo.
Hey. Actually, I have no question. I'm just so quite excited right now knowing these vulnerabilities inside Bubble as well as the other no-code platforms. So looking forward for the topic that you will be discussing.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey, so just a quick question.
Mhm.
So Adalo does the same thing when it's like sending data such as passwords. I thought it's like protected.
So that's a good question, right? You'll notice here password is hidden. So we're getting a little bit outside of my area of expertise. There's a way to hack everything, right? So we should say that. So if I say that something can be done, it doesn't mean it's easy or hard. It's just, it's, as far as I know, it's been proven impossible to make a system that is completely unhackable. That it's only ever possible to make something really, 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 really hard to hack. So with that said, yeah, there is for sure a way to do it. Now, okay, so actually, I'm glad you brought this up, because when we look here, if we take a look at, like, this right here is the token. Where is it? Hold on. So yeah, if we look at one of the calls that goes to the database, we'll find, yeah, here we go. So this is the authorization token that my session is using to communicate with Adalo. So it would be possible to replicate this from elsewhere, but this is pretty standard that when you're making a call from a client, the token is visible. And to my knowledge, there's a necessity to it, in the sense that this app needs to talk directly to Adalo's server. As I say that, there could be a middleman that would probably affect performance a bit. Sometimes you can use a proxy or something in the middle to kind of hide some of the information. And so on the back of that, what I'll say is we worked on something that was in Stripe. And so, you know, let's say we as the client, like as Stripe's client, we have a API key. If we put that in the Adalo custom action, as you can see, the same way that I was able to pull out the 2FA code, I could pull out that Stripe authentication token. And that's like the one authentication token that my app is using for all users. It's not even user specific. So that would be in either case, it would be bad to leak that. And so once again, the way to do it would be to go into make, just trigger a flow, send the information like, hey, this is the user that we're writing about. This is, you know, if the user's email or address is already in Adalo, you can send that, right, to, you know, minimally, right? Because you can, so basically you want to send the webhook enough information to do its job and nothing more than that. And so then what can happen is the webhook can go and dial out to, here, we'll remove this. The webhook could go and dial out to Stripe. And then if I put in here, hold on. Okay, so Stripe. Of course, there are modules, just taking a second to load up. So anyways, the point is, if I put my authentication in here, right, like whatever action I want to do, and I add my account and I put my API key over there, it's never going through Adalo. So then it's secure because it's never going through the client's browser. It's never being sent from that session. So the key is basically to have some type of server. Integromat is a really beautiful middleman. There are other platforms like Xano, which are good, but much more complex. But just using something simple like this, you can store a lot of that sensitive information elsewhere, out of the browser where the user can't reach it. And then at the end, you can send the response back to Adalo, whatever you want. So here I'm just saying, you know, status 200. So, hey, everything's good, keep going. But I could also, by the way, do more than that. I could make a body. This is a structure called JSON. So it's fairly straightforward to write in. But let's say I wanted to give more details. So I would say transaction ID or something like that. And then I could plug in a transaction ID that got returned from my Stripe module here. I don't have it right now because I haven't done a test run, but if we just imagine a bit, or here, status code. So I could send this back, and what will happen at the end of the Adalo action is that it's going to now see these as variables. So basically, you can do a lot of the coordination in make.com or Zapier if you choose, or many of the other good options that are out there. Did that answer the question well? Was there more to it, or can I add on?
No. That's quite a good explanation of that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so let's do a quick thing from scratch here on custom actions. I think Shantanu covered a bit of it, but we're here and we're talking about it. It feels like it would be complete to do that. So let's go ahead. I'll get rid of this window. So we have our custom action. I'm going to just do a new one completely. So let's say we are doing. If someone wants to throw me a scenario other than 2FA, I'll see if I can just make it on the spot. If not, I'll just do the 2FA.
I think 2FA is great.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just delete everything here and we'll start over. And so when you get into a blank scenario, this is what you're going to see. You won't see these because I've already used them, but you click plus and then you can type in webhooks and it'll filter down. Does everyone, is it worth just saying what a webhook is really quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So, and Daniel, I saw your question, I'll answer it right after. So a webhook, I think the best way to look at it is it's a message. So when I create this webhook, it's making an address. Here, we're gonna add a new one, right? We'll call this no code ph demo. Okay, no anything else. We don't need any of the advanced settings. We save, and now I get this address. And so whenever I send, oops, that's not what I want to click. Whenever I send something to this address, it'll be received by make. So it's basically a way to send messages. Webhooks are instant, typically, and they usually happen based on an event. So for example, I can go into my Stripe dashboard and tell it to send a webhook to whatever address I want when a new purchase happens or when a new client is added, or when this thing happens, it'll send me information about it and it'll send it wherever I want. And you can do the same thing with a lot of other systems. So the custom action in Adalo is a webhook. So what you'll see I've done is I've just gone into here. And using make effect app performance. So I mean, I guess yes is probably the shortest answer. And we can discuss a little bit more about how that happens a bit further in the demo. I think it'll make more sense then. So this is my 2FA custom action, right? So I want to add an action. I want to add a custom action. So I'm going to add a new one. I'll call this send to FA securely. And I've never found, I always choose create here. I actually am not sure when you'd use another one. I've never had the issue. So this is my make.com, formerly Integromat webhook that it gave me. And so the method, actually, I could set this. It doesn't matter too much. Get usually means you're getting information. Post usually means you're creating a new thing. Put or patch, depending on the developer, can mean you are updating an existing thing, and delete, of course, deleting. So, okay, so there's a couple of things that need to be done here, right? One of them is, I guess, post is probably most accurate, but it won't matter. And then I'm not sending a 2FA code, but I do need to know who to email it to. So I'm going to make this input here. I'll call it email. I'll give it a test value. And for those of you who don't know what the example value is, when we run the test, it's using that example value. So it needs to be something real or something that'll be accepted. So we'll call this here, Mitch at pragmaflow.com. Okay, so that's done. And then we can go and add it here as a query parameter. So what are the things that we're going to send? We're going to send email. And the value is going to be whatever input we put here. And so then when I run the test request here. So now I'm going to say determine data structure. So make is now listening for the data and will determine the data structure automatically. Please send your data sample. So we do that by running the test request. And when we look here, we see that it's successfully determined. When we come back here, we see the test is successful. There are no outputs. So what I want to show you very quickly is how I could create outputs by adding a webhook response at the end. You know what, let's skip that for now because I realize it's maybe a slight distraction from the core. I'll show it to you after. So from here, what we want to do is, okay, save the custom action. I'm going to send the logged in user's email. So now when this button is clicked, the logged in user's email gets piped into the field that we created in the custom action. So just logical flow, right? This email is grabbed and then it becomes this input, and this input is the email field. So that's how the whole thing works. Now, when we look on this side, if I just do run, and this is really useful, you can run it once and you can do a test and you get to see actually what's being sent. So run test request, and over here, what did it send? It sent me email. Perfect. So I have exactly what I'm hoping for. And you'll notice that the name I gave it is the name that shows up here. So the second thing we're going to do is send an email. And so we're going to send it to the email address that has been given. Again, the subject, your 2FA code is, we don't know yet. And content, well, I guess I can do whatever, but I'll just leave it empty. So before I actually set a variable in a separate module, and then that was a 2FA code. But if I wanted to save on, this is one request. Each time we go through a module, it uses one request. On a free plan, you have 1,000 per month. So if we wanted to be a bit more conservative, then we would just do it right here. We would do, so what did I do last time? I did ceiling, then I did random. And you've got to use these operators. You can't type in plus in Integra make. I'm still transitioning on the name. They changed their plan this year, their branding this year. So here, this is multiplication, 99999, 9. And so this is going to create the 2FA code. So again, this is a random is a number between 0 and 1. So it's going to be some decimal. We're going to multiply it by this, which is going to create some number between 0 and this over here. And then we're going to just round it up. So that's essentially it. We've done the random. So this is where the 2FA code is going to get generated now. And if I were to do this, it would send me an email and then I could type in that number. Now, the last thing, of course, I did leave out is we still have to update the logged in user, probably before sending it. And so how do we do that, right? We can't do it here because we don't know the code actually. So then what we would have to do is go into, so we would have to go and update the user. So we're going to add a module, an Adalo module, and we're going to update a record. And if I choose an account, well, I haven't added any yet. So I would have to add the collection that I want to add here in Adalo that I want to update. So the way that we do that is by going to our databases, and you can click on any one. Here it's users that I want to edit, and go to the API documentation. And over here, we're going to get the information we need to hook it up. So if I say I want to add, it's going to ask me for my API key, my app ID, and my database collection. And so if we take a look over here, and now all of you who are watching this are going to be able to hack my demo app, which probably isn't such a good thing. So I guess I'll have to address that after the recording. All right. So here we go, API key. Now, for those of you who don't have some type of clipboard manager, it's the greatest thing ever. I've just copied all 3 of those, and now I am going to just paste them one after the other in here. It's the greatest time saver, I think, pretty much ever. Now notice on the database collection, there's this T underscore thing. And when we were in the inspection window in the network tab, there were a lot of things that said T underscore, and those are the calls to Adalo's databases actually. So let's see if this worked. Boom, perfect. So now I would have to update a user, but I do need their record ID and I actually don't have it. So how would I do that? It does create a small problem. Now, there is a weirdness in Adalo, which I hope they fix soon, which is that record IDs, which usually are, 1, 2, 3 and onwards, they just, increment the count each time. Those are not made available to the user on the front end. So the way that you can get it, there's two ways. One is we have a component that lets you get the record ID. It's a button, and that I could implement, and it would send the ID through the webhook, and then I could use that. The other way to do it would be to, and I hate doing this because I don't think it's great. And this is where it would be wonderful if Adalo added query parameters, because here it would be amazing if I could say, get the record by email. The other way to do it though, and this isn't great because you're asking for all of your user data. And so that is a bit problematic. And I will say it feels wrong to me as any type of developer to do this. Not only because of efficiency, but best practice. So the way a lot of people do this, and the way I've done it in the past, is you get all of the user records. And of course, you can see the issue with that. And then we add back our update Adalo module. So we update our record. And in between, what we do is we just filter for only the record we want. So we say the condition is that the email of the user is equal to the email that we sent through the webhook. So now what it's going to do is go through every user in the app. So this is going to say, hey, we've got to send a 2FA code to Mitch at pragmaflow.com. This is going to say, okay, get all the users so we can figure out like who that is actually in Adalo terms. Over here, once we figured that out, there's only one record that should ever come through because there should only be one user with my email. And so then I can just take the record ID and now I know who I'm modifying. Again, the much better way to do this, and I won't do it right now, maybe if we have time after I'll do it, is to use our record ID button, because when you click on it, it's able to basically use a list type filtering to get the ID of any record you want. That way you can actually just say, hey, make.com, update record 263, and then we don't have to get a list of every user anymore. And so the last thing we're going to do is update our 2FA. Now, actually, you may have realized that I've put myself in a bit of a corner here because I'm making the 2FA afterwards, and that doesn't work so well. So what I do need to do, in fact, is create my variable. As I did before. So we use tools, we can create a set of variable. Now, the reason I'm doing it here instead of over here or over here is just that I have a filter here, and make.com doesn't give you amazing control of if I put in a new module where the filter goes in front or in back. So instead, I'm just putting it here. The best practice would be to put this after the filter, because that way this extra request will only fire if the, okay, it's not that hard to do. Let me just do it. The time I'm spending describing it. Okay, so we're going to set a variable. We're going to put it here. And yeah, you see my filter is going afterwards. That's not what I wanted. So we'll fix it up. We'll just remove this. Okay. Also, find by email. It's important to label things. It's just a generally good practice so you don't get too lost. And so again, our condition, email equal to the email that we're sending by the webhook. So once we find that one record, we can go create our 2FA code. Oh, I lost my ceiling there. Let's put that back in. Okay, so ceiling random times at 1 short of a million, perfect. So create 2FA. And so now we have that. Finally, when we go to update this record ID, right, that we're pulling, are we pulling this from the right place? This is 11. So no, I'm actually not yet pulling that from the right place. So let me now step back and say one of the things in make.com is that it doesn't know what data you're getting until you've run it once. So I'm going to do a run. It's almost certainly going to error out somewhere, and that's okay. Oh, even easier is, no, that's going to be the best way. Okay, so we'll run our custom action one more time as a test. Okay, so we'll see some progress here. Perfect, perfect. Yeah, find user by email, and it didn't work. So how come nothing matched? So the email I sent is mitch@pragmaflow.com, but actually that is not a user of my app. So I did not use a very wise test email. Instead, I'll use the test@test.com, which is actually a user in the app. And so that way it'll have a match. So we'll run once again. We'll run the test. Test successful. We got through the filter. We errored here because I did not put a record. Perfect. So why did I just do that? When I come back here, before I only had the options that were essentially over here, the list record. Okay, test@test.com. So it may have been unnecessary to do that, I realize. So the value of what I was doing is I was trying to get these variables here to update so that I can plug them in, and you'll only have access to these variables once you've run them once. But actually, since all I'm doing is filtering the results from here, then my record ID actually is coming from here. So now we know which record ID to update. In this case, it's record ID number 1. And you can see now that I've run, I do have fake data here, so that's much more helpful in terms of just filling this out. So the last thing I need to do is update the 2FA for that user. So create, okay, whatever, I misspelled that. But so with this right now, what's happening is, yeah, that's email, perfect. So that email is for sure going to bounce back. But if we save and we run here, let's go back and just run again. Then look in make.com. We still have an error. Okay, so what happened? We have this is working. This is working. We got all bundle 1, bundle 2, bundle 3. So we actually got all 3 of our test users in here. Then we went through and we filtered, and only one of the users came through. That's the one where the emails matched up. So then that one got their 2FA. And when we came here, we had a 400 request failed with status code 500. 500 usually means it couldn't find something. So was it, oh yeah, of course, because I want to put record ID, not email here. Of course, I was just testing who was paying attention. So now we'll run this again. The thing I love about doing this stuff live is like, I want you to see the dumb errors that I make along the way, because if you talk to a developer of 20 years experience, they'll tell you about hours that they have spent just tracking down a semicolon or something, like one tiny, tiny detail. Okay, so basically the issue I'm hitting now is that this connection with my Gmail is old. I'm not going to restore it here, but basically we have all the flow working except here, invalid login, because again, it's an old authentication token. I haven't used Gmail here in a while. So what would happen at the end of this is, here we go. So the output is, right, like all I did was update the 2FA code for this user. So when we take a look, we can see this 2FA code is now the users in the user's data, and that's been emailed to them. So now we have all the pieces we need to make a second screen where we just compare the code that the user types in to the code that is in their user record, which we'll double check here. Yeah, 9254446. I hope that was the right one. Is that what we said? 9254446. Beautiful. So now when I do this custom action, let's take another look in our inspection console at the network tab. go into preview. Okay, we're done loading things. Perfect. So now when I do this, if I go to my execute action here, the payload, you see, I can see the user's email, but I don't have the 2FA code. So this is not going to allow me to put in a false email and then just extract the code anymore. And so there, just for the 2FA, we have a meaningfully more secure system that can't be broken. Okay, now, Daniel, back to your question about affecting performance. If I have an action that happens in Adalo, it's usually pretty fast. If I have an action that has to go to Integromat and back, it doesn't take very long, to make.com. It doesn't take very long. And if we just take a look at the history, we can see how long it took to run. So there's the time it took to run. There's the time that it takes to get back and forth. So it ran for 1 second the last time that I did it. Maybe it would have taken 2 seconds if it actually sent the email and it didn't error out. So that is time that, in this case, it doesn't matter. The user has to switch to their email. So that 2 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever it is, it's not going to appear to the user. But if you were doing an action in the app where, let's say we're doing, in one app, we do Stripe authentication. And because basically the Stripe component that is in Adalo, for the reasons that I'm showing you here, we prefer to use the Stripe checkout through a web view, which is challenging to set up. But it's much more secure because it's entirely Stripe's ecosystem rather than trying to make our own version of it in Adalo. And so when we do something like that, we have to ask for a checkout instance. It's kind of weird, like, hey, I need a new checkout screen, create one for me. So it says no problem and it does it. So then what we do is we send that through make.com and then the response comes back to make and then it comes back to Adalo. And that takes like 5 seconds. So it's not horrible, but sure, if there was some way to do it entirely in Adalo that was, much more secure, it would probably be faster. But even then, Adalo would have to dial out to Stripe, ask for the instance, get it back, or do whatever they're doing. So whenever you're calling out to another, platform across the web, it's going to eat up a little bit of time. So when you use Xano, it's super fast. It's optimized to be a backend for these kinds of things. The key is when you're using Make, some scenarios are webhooks, so at least they're instant. You can do custom actions with those. Some scenarios run every 15 minutes or hour. It's hard to do custom actions with those, of course. So performance is affected in the sense that it takes a certain amount of time to do the work that you're asking it to do, but performance is not or should not be affected in terms of, oh, now it's lagging. Oh, now it's, it shouldn't use up a ton of memory or things like that. Okay, so I mean, that's pretty much all of what I wanted to discuss today. There was one other item, and I'm a little sad that it's not working. I wonder if it got fixed over the evening or if I've just forgotten how to do it, which is really possible. But it was basically that, this Heroku URL, there was a way to just pull this into Postman. I'm going to see if I can do that now and just get that URL. And you know what? I remembered the reason why it's not working now, because this, hold on, it's this one I want. This is a post, and I was doing a get. So I was asking to be given information, but what I needed to do was send information. So almost certainly that's why it was giving me an error. Yep, there we are. So I've taken this URL, I've gone into Postman, which is a great platform for doing API tests, although Make is also a great platform for that. So pick the one you like. And we can see here. So what I did is I just sent the, here, I'll show you a quick demo. What I did is I just pinged this flow. So what I did doesn't really do anything. I'm sure it errored because I didn't even send an email with it. And even if I did, I'd be sending a 2FA to an email and updating a user. They'd have to exist. There's not a lot of problem with the fact that I can hit this endpoint. Now let's do a little edit to it. So I'm just going to remove this Gmail thing for, oops. I'm going to remove this Gmail module, and I'm going to put on a webhook response. So we talked about this before. I said I would do it after. So now we have real user data. It's going to make more sense. So the structure is really simple. You open your curly braces. You have a key, a value. They're in quotes, and they're separated by a colon. There's a comma at the end of each line. So I'll show you how that works. So let's say I was returning some information about the user that's more important, like name. Oops. So name. And that is right here. And then, so there we go. Quotes, colon, quotes, comma. You don't have to put a comma on the last one in your list. We'll end this with a curly brace. So I'm going to do name, and I'm going to do, I don't see why we'd ever return password. But yeah, here, whatever it is, I'll just put an email. Oh, won't need that. Okay, so we'll put an email. And so this is going to be the response from the webhook. And what's really useful, by the way, is you can do something like add a, oops, wrong one. You can add a router here. So then you can have multiple options. Right here, I'm just going to copy paste this. I'll make a second one. So then what I could do is, like, if I hit an error, or if there's kind of a problem along the way, I can make different routes where I have different responses, and I can use my filter again to say, like, figure out if there's a condition that would tell me there's an error, or let's say record ID is empty. So I know that's going to cause an error. So if record ID doesn't exist, we go this way. If record ID does exist, then I could make it go this way, and I could send different responses back to back to Adalo, sorry. So here with this, let's see what it looks like. Yeah, let's process existing, why not? Okay, what doesn't this like? It's unhappy about something. Can't be processed when scenario is not execute. Oh, that makes sense. Okay, because I used one that was in the queue that, like, it tried to process, but it didn't work. It can't send a webhook response. It needs to be instant, happening live. So let's go back to our preview. We're going to hit the custom action button. We'll see what happens here. Everything fires. Perfect. Not anymore. Okay. What I actually wanted to show you, now that I think about it, is what happens over here. So this part will be very useful, by the way. So I know we've been going through the, like, how it's getting done and all that, but right now is here's how you can use this thing usefully. So we're going to run a new one. We're going to listen for new. I'm going to send this request. And look, so now in my response from the webhook, I have name tester1, and I have email. So I could actually use this in a follow-up action. So now, you know, on a 2FA scenario, maybe this doesn't make sense, but I could easily use that information to update the user based on the response from the webhook. So I could call out to any platform on the web that has an API, get information from it, send it back to Adalo, and then use it to update the user. So that's a really, really useful thing that can be done with webhook responses. In Make, I didn't use webhook responses for a pretty long time. So I think if you don't do that, it handles it automatically. But if you want to be custom about it, then you can add that module. Okay. Do you have experience of a transaction that floats? Daniel, what did you mean by that? And while we're waiting, JSON format, did I explain that at this point, or should we talk about it a little bit more? Okay, yeah, so what I will say is that JSON format, it's worth looking into. It's the basic way that messages tend to be sent across the web. And so you'll often have that structure. It's actually exactly what we're looking at in make.com. So that's how all these work. So Here it's removed the quotes and the curly braces and the comma, but it would look exactly like this. You'd have your collection, you'd have your curly brace, record ID, 1, comma, email, test, and it basically looks like this. So this is a great way to visualize JSON structure. And if you are ever on a page, I'll show you guys a cool trick too. If you're ever looking at something like this, which let's be real, it's pretty hard to read this usefully, you can always do JSON prettifier. There's a lot of ways to do this, and there's a lot of free websites. You can do this, by the way, with HTML and JavaScript and pretty much most code. Whenever you have a giant, ugly, unformatted block of code that you'd just like to maybe be able to look at a bit better. So here, this, and when we make pretty, there we go. It formats it beautifully for us. And so this is actually, this is JSON as well. So we see our same structure. These are property IDs that Adalo, yeah, I don't know. These usually represent property IDs, but often ones that have been like deleted. So I'm not sure why they're showing their ID instead of their name here. But yeah, that's what JSON is. Daniel, back to you. Did not push through. Are you talking about the like over here when it was asking me about listening for new ones versus processing old ones, or are you talking about something else? And I'll invite, if you can, to unmute.
You can unmute or easier conversation.
Too noisy there. Okay, no problem. So yeah, just are you, that's it. Are you asking about like over here for this, or are you talking about something with Stripe? I just want to understand the question. Okay, while I'm waiting for your response, so the thing that I wanted to show is before there was not really any problem with me hitting this this webhook, right? But now, and because because basically I'm able to see what's being sent, right? Here, let's see how I would do this. We're going to,
sorry, Mitch. Daniel said it's related with payments and transaction. Maybe it's about Stripe. That did not went through.
So that's a that's a whole conversation, and also it's a thing that I think we'd have to get to really specifics. Usually you would just give some type of error. Like the most basic way is if a payment doesn't go through, you respond with an error. And so that's one of the ways that where I was saying you can do multiple webhooks. You could say, so what I did in a scenario is when we called Stripe, we were expecting a certain response. And then I said, if that response is empty, then instead of giving the success response, I created a second route, and that's the failed response. And then the app does something different based on that response. So that's the broad answer of how to do it. So yeah, we have our test at test.com. This is the call that was sent out before. And so yeah, so we see right here, there is some obfuscation, which is good. I'm not seeing the name of the parameter that's being sent out. So that creates a type of security because, well, what do I actually send if I want to get information back about a user? So in that case here, I know that the value, I could use test.com, but what's the name of the key? Well, in this case, I called the key email, and basically I have unlimited tries to guess. So I'm curious if that other ID works, but basically here we are, I just want to turn this on actually. Okay, here, we're just gonna go turn on, delete queue. Okay. Yes, yes, I do. Thank you for asking. Okay, so back to this is, okay, so if I run this request and, oh yeah, here, email equals that, perfect. So what happens? So we can see, so when we talk about performance, you can see that took a bit longer because it's a longer flow. So here's what it responded to me. It said, success is true, data is accepted, status text. I actually didn't get the email returned there. This is the unprettified version of it. So it's kind of curious because I would have expected it to return the email to me. And so I'll just run a test here real quick. By the way, when you hit play, it'll let you see the run through live. Otherwise, you have to go to history. So it is pretty useful to do that. So when I send this request, what happens? Okay. So apparently the email that I typed in doesn't match any of the emails and it's failing, which is weird. Email is undefined. Okay, so I didn't send the parameter correctly. Email, there we go. And you know what? I'm curious now. This is, by the way, I did not try this in advance, so I'm risking looking really stupid in front of you. Or maybe that's dramatic, but I am risking this not working at all. And I'll just hope you kind of get my point anyways, that someone a little bit cleverer than me could make this work. So essentially, you see the way that someone could go about doing this. I'm wondering also if it's because I was doing a get before and that's what it trained for. Nope. So, okay, so this may not end so excitingly, but you could see basically that there are ways that if data is being returned, someone who knows a little more than me, and I am not a particularly technical person when it comes to this level of things, could still obtain user data by exploiting endpoints. And I won't get into it, but there's ways to do authentication. We can see that what's actually stopping people from getting to my endpoint now is that they don't know what parameter to send. Now, someone kind of smart could figure it out probably pretty quickly. But then I could do other things throughout that just do little checks, you know? Maybe there's a password that gets sent along. Maybe there's a type of authentication, something like that. Again, you have to be careful that it can't be sniffed out on the front end, but there's a few ways to do checks. You know, maybe when I click this button, and I'm just inventing things off the top of my head here, but one thing that maybe would work is something very simple. We'll do a true false. This is here, 2FA is okay. And so when we start this action, we update the logged in user. It's the first thing we do. We say 2FA is okay. And then once this is done, we update again and we go back to saying 2FA is not okay. And the last thing we do is maybe add in a check here and say, so on top of filter user by email, and they must have 2FA as equal to, oh no, not that. 2FA is okay. Yeah, I don't have it here yet. And the reason is because I haven't actually ever seen that data before in make. So the way to get it is I'm going to run this module only. This gets all the user data. Now I have 2FA is okay as a field. And so I'll be able to reference it later on. So here we go. I add my AND rule. I have 2FA is, you're killing me here. Come on. Nope, that's not it.
Is it not the one below the orders?
No, this is just the regular 2FA. Yeah, I know, it got me before also. Okay, so this is, I'm just going to send a full run here and hopefully that'll jog it. Usually it's better at picking up new variables and things like that, but not always. Okay, so hopefully that jogged it. Looks right. Okay, and now give me access to 2FA. Is okay, question mark. Well, that's so annoying. Does it show up here when I try to update? 2FA is okay, so it shows up here, but it doesn't yet show up here. Oh, by the way, this is a limit of 10, so if you have a lot of users in your app, you definitely need to increase that. And I'm just curious, 2FA is okay. Because it's empty, it's not actually detecting it, and it's not true for any of my users. So I think that's just a little bug. The way I can make it understand that this property exists is just by setting it to true for one of my users. And then in that way, it'll detect it. And by the way, when you send a true false property back to Adalo, often the same thing can happen, which is that until it receives true, it just recognizes an empty property, because false or 0 or null can often be the same thing, depending on the way it's evaluated. So here now, when we run this module, we're going to see 2FA is okay, one of them is going to be true, and that means finally this is going to pick it up, or I'm just going to give up. Yes. Okay, so 2FA is okay, and we want that to be equal to true. So now, if I send this, right, and unless I've sniffed out, and I could still sniff this out, right? Like I can still find the user's data structure, I can still get the user data, I can still see that this field exists. If I take a look at preview, and if it's not here yet, yeah, it's probably too early. So here, let's just start again. So when I load this up, I can still see that property exists. So it's not perfect, but this is just an extra little piece of security. And there's a lot of different ways that we can think about that are probably even much better than this, that would just kind of create extra barriers for people. But yeah, the problem would be temporary 2FA. Yeah, so I don't know, for whatever reason, I think it's one of these properties and it's not showing the name, which is much better because that creates a nice kind of extra security. So now someone wouldn't be able to see the intent. The other thing is that if I name the property something less obvious, then anyone seeing the property name wouldn't understand what it is. If, I mean, we're not going to change the name of the email field, but if I sent the parameter email as something other than email, if it were less obvious, then that would make it harder for someone to understand what I'm doing. So these are just some of the levers that we have to play on with making things just a little bit more secure, because we see how easy it is to step outside of Adalo and start accessing things. But now if I send this request, if I send that request, I would really hope that it doesn't let it through anymore. It's still probably going to return a success message though, because I haven't set it up to return an error message, but it stops here. So nothing is returned. So just a couple of thoughts, I guess, on that. I will now stop talking. Are there questions?
Guys have any questions or comments? I think, at least for me, it was wonderful to see you debug the stuff. At least when if ever we encounter the same problem, we know how to go through it. Yeah. Oh, Daniel said it's very informative. Pretty much explained it very well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Awesome.
You've mentioned the way that Glide uses it is they pass something through and it's quite unsecure doing it that way. They pass everything. Isn't that the same thing that Adalo is doing? You pass it through make with that way. What would be the difference if you use make and then just pass it just with Adalo itself?
Right. So what you can see is when I'm basically when I'm passing the information with Adalo, we can see what I've attached to it. So when I was attaching the 2FA code before, I was able to get it in the browser. I didn't have to go to my email, or I didn't have to check a text message. However, the code is being sent to me. The point is to confirm that I really own that email. And what I'm saying is that very easily, I could get the code without owning the email. But if we only make the code on the back end in make.com or some other system, then I cannot see it in Frontier because it never goes through Adalo through my browser. Make will put it into the Adalo database from their servers, but that doesn't go through my browser. I don't get to see it. And I think it's also important to say that over here, now I'm running Make in my browser, right? I've got it open, so you're seeing essentially everything it's doing. Now, if I close this window,
I think
oh yeah,
you
right.
haven't shared your screen.
Thank you. So if I close the Make window, right, all of this still works. Make has an interface for me to work with, but the user never touches it and the user never sees it. The user only interacts with it through Adalo. So by making things start in Make, the user never sees them. And so if it goes from Make, like if Make does something, right, which is, and actually this is probably an important distinction to make, to say is when Make does an update Adalo action, that's happening on the back end. It does not go through my browser. So I don't see that. Now, what I do see is the webhook response at the end, but the middle modules that are slowly loading up here, that update Adalo or get user information from Adalo, none of those are visible to the user through their browser. So that's what makes it much more secure. So just this guy and this guy, I mean, everything in between here is invisible to the user from their browser session. So that's what makes it much more secure.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. And thank you so much for having your camera on. It's been really nice to see the audience a bit. It really makes this much more enjoyable for me. So thank you. I know it's tempting to just keep camera off for sure. I know. So I really appreciate it.
Said, hoping to see this everything in Adalo and not use another app, because it will. I think he's telling that if we use another app, it will be more expensive. Add up to an expense. So yeah, you understand when the app is expensive.
I guess one thing I can say, and like, I want to be really sensitive that as a North American, my perspective may be completely irrelevant to the environment that you're working in on this thing, right? And I'll say it anyways. And if it doesn't work for you, just throw it right out. But make.com, for example, is $10 US per month at the basic plan. Now, if you're doing work for a client, you're probably going to spend much more time than $10 worth of your hours to redo this work somewhere else. So the client is saving money, quite a bit of money, if they spend $30 or $50 an hour. And the funny thing is, like, we charge 125 US per hour for a senior resource. And sometimes I'll work on a project and then I'll worry about a $15 a month subscription that's saving us like 30 hours of work. And the math makes no sense at all. Of course, $15 to save $4,000 is a fantastic investment. But when it comes to paying for a subscription, I don't know, like, it's a totally different price evaluation that we make. But just remembering that, is it saving the client money? Because you can use it for free to learn. You can make a free account. Now, for Adalo to incorporate all of these features, it could be nice, but most low codes don't do this, actually. So this is really a more, it's a different section of the stack. And so while they might come out with it, just consider, rather than looking at the expense, and it's really easy. I used to do sales. I used to sell TVs and home theater, and we used to sell warranties, and that's where we made all our money. I didn't really believe in them. I thought they were worth half price, so actually usually I sold them for that. But there was one thing that was always true in the sales is, like, if you count your client's budget, then you're going to be wrong one way or another. So we often want to make decisions to not tell people about an option that costs money. And often it is the best option for them. And actually they would love to pay for it because it's the best option, but we're like, oh, I don't know. So just a couple of thoughts on pricing, and it's worth thinking about return on investment more than thinking about the actual cost. If something costs $200 a month and you make $1,000 a month or save $1,000 a month for using it, that's a fantastic investment, but it's also true that it's expensive. So ROI. What else have we got? Yeah, no problem, Daniel. Perfect. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, well, it is 10 o'clock there, I realize. So I guess I'm done.
There's a last question. When will Pragmaflow have secured 2FA component for Adalo?
Yeah, I doubt we will, because it's very solvable in exactly this way. And unless we create our own server, which make.com does for you, essentially, I mean, it's a shared server, but you know, unless we do that, we're going to run into the same issue. So, you know, the answer actually is that that's not the approach. And running a server costs money. So, you know, there's a point where paying for things is better. And you'll notice, like, our free components. So just from I'll talk about components really quickly, because obviously it's a big topic, especially when we're around, is we made a bunch of free components, and we did the work because we wanted to, and because we wanted to expand the horizons. And, you know, there's been changes to the Adalo platform. It's broken the components. This kind of thing is, let's say, normal enough. It has been a pretty quickly moving target, we felt lately. And so the amount of work to keep updating all of these components has just become more than we can take on. We're already really slammed, and we're just at that point of business where we need to really focus on the thing we're doing to get to the next step. So with that said, we want to support components as best we can. There's been lots of breaking updates recently, and instead of always chasing this kind of thing, we're working on trying to figure out a kind of longer term and better solution. Because ultimately, if we're making components and they stop working and then it's not serving people. So we're just really trying to figure out what is the way that we can do something that is more sustainable than what we've done now. So it's not like really a good answer, by the way, about if anyone's asking specific component questions, but just to say that's kind of where we are on it now, and I felt it was worth sharing. So we do want to help. You can always reach out to us. We've just been slammed. It's been hard to answer and support as much as we want. And this is fundamentally the reason why we always kept them free, is because we wanted to provide things, but we just don't have a business model in place to really fully support the Adalo components right now, especially where, you know, we've now started getting like 1 week notices on the last breaking changes, but before that they were just happening. And so it was too hard to, you know, just scramble and run and fix all the time.
Thank you so much for that, Mitch. And as we mentioned on the first part, we will be having the giveaway of Adalo t-shirt. And I'd like to ask you, Mitch, would you want to ask them questions? 3 questions so that they'll answer.
Sure.
Yes, all right. I'll check on who's the first one to chat in the correct answer, and then he or she is the winner. Yes.
All right.
Throw it up.
Cool. Where do I get the questions from?
About the topic you discussed. Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention. The question should come from the topic you discussed. Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm going to do a quiz on. Okay. How many questions am I
Yes.
asking? Cool. No problem.
3.
3.
3 wishes.
Okay. Let's ask a really straightforward question. but what was that thing on the right side of my browser window that was showing us all the information that was getting sent by Adalo?
Wow, Carlo, that was fast. Oh. Make console, inspect element.
Yeah, I'm going to say console is pretty correct. So console and inspect element are both tabs within that
Oh.
developer mode.
Oh.
Sure, that's sentimentally correct. Yes. So yeah, console is accurate. It was actually the network tab, but the console I think is the most accurate name I see here for what we would call that.
Congratulations, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Next question, please.
Okay, next question. What's the name of the type of message that a custom action sends to Integromat, to make.com? And it was also the name of the first module in all of our flows. Webhook, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
All
That
right.
was fast. All right, congratulations. And then the last question.
The last question is.
Yes.
The last question is, this might be a bit of a typing race. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, Daniel.
Daniel.
So the last question is, why can't I send 2FA codes directly from Adalo to make? Or why shouldn't I? I can actually, we've seen that I can do it. And what I really want is like yes. So the first answer is security issue, but what I really want in this question, and I didn't ask it that well, is why is it a security issue?
Wow.
I'm not accepting the name of this talk as the answer for the third question. Yes, Andre got it. So I think we're a three-way tie now.
Wow.
Or is it a tie or does everyone win? How does it work?
Andre is the first one. It can easily be seen in inspect element. Yeah. Is that the reason? Oh.
Yes.
And Andre is our guy.
Yeah, it's tough actually because it cannot be seen in inspect element. It can be seen in the network tab. So Carlu technically is more accurate if changed a certain value number. Yeah, so I'd say Andre and Carlu have kind of both gotten pretty correct. Andre was first.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for asking those wonderful questions. And so congratulations to our 3 lucky winners. Was it Jennifer, King, and Carlo, Nevada? Congratulations, you guys. And yes, just gentle reminder for, before I proceed to the important dates that we need to plot in our schedule, I'd like to really thank Mitch for helping us understand the security feature of Pragmaflow. And we hope to have more conversations and workshops like this with you and Pragmaflow. And yes.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Thank you so much for inviting me. King, I'm so appreciative of you having your camera on that I'm gonna extend to you. You have my email because I've already shown it a bunch of times. It's Mitch at Pragmaflow. If you want ever to have like a 20-minute chat about some obstacles or something you're building in Adalo or whatever it is, reach out. I'll be happy to do. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Hey, that's awesome. All right, so you guys.
You know what, Daniel, also for your high level of engagement. So both of you, thank you very much.
Awesome. Yes. So for our next activity. Yes, Mitch. I'm sorry.
We have that lag problem. It's horrible. I noticed Daniel raising his hand, and I noticed someone else raising their hand before, but I've forgotten who it was.
I think John Ites was.
Did anyone want to raise their hand again, or just unmute and talk? Okay, guess not.
Going twice. Sorry, last call, guys.
Going.
Going. All right. Last call, guys. Any comments, suggestions, violent reactions?
Yes. I really want the violent reactions. Did anyone just hate this and wants to curse me out? That would be a really fun ending.
What's this? Is there an applause, and I'm grateful for tonight. Yes, great session. Appreciate the learning, Mitch and team. All right. Yay. Crystal, you're still with us. Awesome. Thanks for this sesh. All right. So here are the dates. April 25, deadline of project submission. Oh, and 26th is the announcement of top 10. Are you ready, guys, to be on the top 10? Congratulations already. And April 27 and 28 will be for individual mentoring calls, and 29 is the demo day. Gotta prepare for that, you guys. All right, so that's it for our evening, and thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mitch, and thank you, King.
And thanks everyone.
Everyone.
It's a pleasure.
Have a great weekend. Happy weekend.